Your ancestors could carry heavy loads for miles, survive freezing nights, and fight off predators with nothing but stone and fire. Their bodies were built for a world far harder than ours. So why did so many of them die before reaching old age? We've all heard that ancient humans rarely lived past 30, but that number hides a much stranger truth. Let's start with the strength, because the evidence for it is remarkable. In 2014, researchers at the University of Cambridge published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences comparing the bone density of ancient foragers, farmers, and modern humans. What they found was that hunter-gatherers from around 7,000 years ago had bone strength comparable to modern orangutans, with roughly 20% more bone mass than the farmers who came after them. To put that in perspective, that's about the same amount of bone density an astronaut loses after 3 months of weightlessness in space. A separate study on prehistoric women found their arm bones were 5 to 10% stronger than those of modern female athletes, evidence of a lifetime spent grinding grain, hauling water, and carrying children and supplies over long distances. The researchers were blunt about the conclusion. There's no anatomical reason a person born today couldn't develop that same strength. We're not built weaker, we just don't use our bodies the way they did. So if they were that physically capable, why does everyone say ancient humans died young? This is where the statistic gets misleading. When people say the average lifespan in the Paleolithic was around 25 to 35 years, that number is technically true and almost completely misunderstood. Averages get dragged down hard by extremes, and prehistoric infant mortality was brutal. Some estimates put it as high as 40 to 50% of children not surviving past early childhood. If you take a population where half the children die before age 5 and the rest live into their 60s or 70s, the mathematical average comes out somewhere in the 20s or 30s, even though almost nobody in that population actually died at that age. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, used as a rough model for Paleolithic life, have found that once you survive childhood, average adult life expectancy climbs to somewhere around 60 to 70 years, not far from modern numbers in developed countries. The mortality pattern isn't a flat line. It's U-shaped, brutal in early childhood, dramatically safer through the middle of life, then rising again with age, much like today. So the honest version of the "they died young" claim isn't that adults collapsed of old age at 30. It's that far fewer people made it out of childhood in the first place. But here's where the story takes a turn almost nobody expects. Most people assume that once humans invented farming, life got easier and safer. The opposite happened, and the skeletal evidence for it is startling. In 1984, anthropologists George Armelagos and Mark Nathan Cohen published a landmark study examining human skeletons on either side of the transition from foraging to farming across dozens of ancient societies on nearly every continent. 19 out of 21 of those societies showed the same pattern. Health got measurably worse after agriculture arrived, not better. Average height dropped. In parts of Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean, adult stature fell by as much as 10 centimeters compared to the hunter-gatherers who came before, and in some regions it didn't fully recover for thousands of years. One detailed study of skeletons from ancient farming communities in North America found nearly twice as many signs of malnutrition, 4 times the rate of iron deficiency anemia, and 3 times the rate of infectious bone disease compared to the hunter-gatherers who had lived in the same region earlier. In that particular population, life expectancy at birth actually dropped from 26 years to just 19. The reason makes sense once you hear it. Hunter-gatherers ate an enormously varied diet. Whatever plants, animals, nuts, and fish were seasonally available. Early farmers ate mostly whatever single starchy crop their community depended on, which left them malnourished in ways a forager rarely was. On top of that, living in permanent settlements packed people closer together, often alongside domesticated animals, which meant infectious diseases could spread in ways that simply weren't possible for small, mobile foraging bands. Agriculture eventually paid off in food surpluses, population growth, and everything that came with it. But for the individual humans living through that transition, it was, biologically speaking, a significant step backward. Which brings us to the real question. If farming actually made health worse, and Paleolithic adults who survived childhood could expect to live into their 60s or 70s, what was actually killing the strong, healthy, well-adapted adults who didn't make it? it? The answer isn't weakness. It's the absence of anything to catch you when something went wrong. Violence was more common than most people expect. Archaeologists examining skeletal remains from various prehistoric sites have found signs of blunt trauma and healed or unhealed fractures at surprisingly high rates in certain locations, sometimes in over half the remains studied at a given site. Life in small, resource-competing groups with no formal law meant conflict could turn lethal quickly, and there was no police response, no hospital, no way to de-escalate a fight before it became fatal. Then there was infection, which is arguably the biggest single difference between their world and ours. A broken leg today means a cast and 6 weeks of recovery. A broken leg 50,000 years ago could easily become infected, and infection with no antibiotics was often a death sentence. The same was true for something as small as a deep cut, an abscessed tooth, or a wound from an animal bite. Their bodies could be extraordinarily strong and still lose to a microscopic threat with no chemical defense available to fight back. And then there was childbirth, one of the most dangerous single events a human body could go through, for both mother and infant, without modern obstetric care to intervene when something went wrong. A breech birth, a hemorrhage, an infection afterward, any of these could easily kill a woman who was, in every other respect, at the physical peak of her life. Put it all together, and the picture looks nothing like the cartoon version most people carry around in their heads. Ancient humans weren't fragile, aging bodies stumbling toward an early death from general decline. They were, by almost every physical measure we can test, stronger than we are today, capable of feats of endurance and load-bearing that would put most modern humans in the hospital. And the moment farming arrived, promising stability and surplus, human bodies actually got measurably weaker and sicker for thousands of years before that trade-off finally paid off. Ancient humans didn't die young because they were weak. They died young because they lived in a world where one mistake could become a death sentence. Their bodies were stronger than ours. Their world was simply far less forgiving.